There was a tremendous shift because, I resonate a lot with how you articulated that experience of art saving you and being the breath that kinda keeps you going, because when I was still in that environment, that's exactly what it was for me. Like, I would just lock myself in my little studio for hours, and I would pour myself into it. It was, like, the only thing that kept me going. It was my place to alchemize all of the stuff that I was dealing with at the time, and um, when I left, my relationship with my business changed because it went from being something that I did just for fun, there was no pressure on it to make money, to, "Oh my god, like, I have all of these bills now. I am fully responsible for myself for the first time in my life."
All right. Welcome to the Naked Earth podcast. Today we have Kenzie, an amazing, incredible artist. She's a full time multimedia artist and creative guide devoted to helping artists transform their passion into prosperity. With a background rooted in hands on artistry and soulful entrepreneurship, she believes that unapologetic self expression is the pathway to success. Kenzie's mission is to awaken the satiated, heart led creatrix who inspires and creates ripples of beauty, love, and wealth across the planet. So I feel very excited to welcome Kenzie today. How you feeling?
I'm feeling so good. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. I saw and found your art years ago. Context, Kenzie makes these incredible, ethereal alien fae incense burners and clay and pottery. Her art is in such a very unique realm that I feel like, I see all the time just in the woods, and you're bringing it to reality. And so I've always really admired your art, and it's a pleasure to get to meet and talk with you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. And I gotta ask, like, where do you get your inspiration from to do your art?
Um Honestly, it's kind of just my weird imagination that I've always had. Like, from the time that I was little, I loved to just get lost in my head. I would create little realms everywhere that I was, and I feel like it's just kind of followed me into my adulthood. The fairies in particular, the little pointy-eared smoking, beings, those popped in for me a couple years ago, when I was in a really, really, strong Zelda kick. Like, I was playing Zelda nonstop, and I just loved the way that they looked, and I remember I was just sitting there at one point, and it popped in so clearly, and I was like, "Oh my god." And then once I started creating them, they just kept coming to me. But yeah, I don't know, I've always been a little bit weird, so I feel like it just comes from my brain.
Yeah, I get that. I feel like when you're an artist, you have this just sense where sometimes it doesn't make sense, and I think that's what
Mhm,
makes artists so unique and special in their way. And I really love how I feel like you've really found your style. So many
mm,
artists can explore and experiment, but I feel like something magical happens when an artist locks in what works for yourself that inspires your own creativity and what also works for people that wanna buy it, Can you tell
mhm.
me a little bit about some of your wins and even some of your failures with your business?
Mm. Yeah, first I can speak to what you had just mentioned about settling in and finding locking into your style and your expression, because I remember I struggled with that in the beginning when I first came to ceramics. I came in looking at all of the established artists who already had such a strong style where you're like, "Oh, you could look at their work and be like, 'She made that,' I wanted that so bad." And I just didn't have it in the beginning. I was making things that were very, I was getting inspiration from other people and just kinda dabbling and trying out lots of different things, and so that's really the best way that you can find eventually what wants to come through you is just by playing until something really, really locks in and you snag that frequency really tight and it's like, oh, then it's just a stream and it just keeps coming through. Um, and that happened for me probably a year into me working on ceramics in particular, and it just came from continuing to show up even not being where I wanted to be at the beginning. Um, I pushed through a lot of imposter syndrome in the beginning, especially when I first started sharing my art, again, because I saw artists who had been doing it for years who were making beautiful work that was so unique and special, and I was like, "I don't have anything to share," like, I'm just making these basic little wobbly pots on my pottery wheel, like, who's gonna wanna see this? Like, and, I kept showing up and I kept trying, and, um, the best thing that I did for myself was continue to push through the perfectionism because I think a lot of artists can probably relate to this. Like, we can sit on a project for so long before actually putting it out because we're like, no, we can tweak this, we can do that. And the more that you can just iterate and just try again and again and again, and keep that momentum going, that's when the development and the artist within you really emerges. And it's funny when I finally did lock into something that truly felt unique to me is when it started reflecting in my social media. Like I started gaining traction and getting known for something that was like, "Oh my gosh, I've never seen that before." And the downside to that is you can get kind of attached to like what is being received well and you want to make more and more and more of it because it's performing and it's getting views and um I did that for a period of time where I just kept making the same things because people liked them. And my journey over the last couple years have been me dissolving those restraints that I had on myself to create what I've always done and like keep pushing myself out of the boundary to create new things. Um, and so yeah, it's been a very up and down all over the place kind of journey as the artist journey is.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah.
I know that. I know that frustration of like making things over and over and wanting to like just make what other people want and also wanting to
Mhm,
balance like what is it that you want? I
mhm.
heard you mention that uh, you've just been doing pottery for a few years. Was that correct?
Yes, well,
Wow.
I first I I first started, I was introduced to it in high school ceramics class.
Okay.
That's where I first tried it, and I fell absolutely in love with it. For reference, like, I did so bad in school, except in my art classes, like, yeah, yeah, you get it. And, ceramics class out of all of my art classes was my absolute favorite. I loved it. And, after I graduated, I didn't continue taking classes or anything like that, and I came back to it several years later. This was in 2020, um, and yeah, so I've been doing it now on my own for 5 years.
Okay, I think I misunderstood. I was like, "Wait a second. No way you've just been doing ceramics for like 3 years or 4 years." Okay, so tell me more of like when found it, like, and what was that bridge for you? Like, why did you come back?
So I after graduating high school, I went on quite the journey with my life. I was really excited to get out of my house, out of my childhood house, and just experience freedom. And I ended up finding a love that I thought was my soulmate at the time. And at the age of 17, I moved across the country with him out of my parents' house against their will. And I dove into a life of a lot of responsibility really early. We got married when I was 19, and then I had my first child when I was 20. And at the time, I thought, like, oh my God, this is my life. Like, I signed up for this. enormous responsibility at such a young age before really knowing, like, who I was, and I adore my son, I love him to death, and I was so obsessed and so in love with taking care of him, and that became, like, my whole identity because I didn't really have anything else. It was like I was his mom, I was a stay-at-home mom, I was the homemaker, and I didn't really know who Kenzie was anymore, because that was my whole entire life. I poured into them, I poured into my home, my family, and I remember I was laying in bed one night when he was sleeping next to me, and I was on TikTok, and I saw this girl making ceramics in a little studio in her garage, and I was like, my gosh, it's been forever, like, I haven't thought about clay in so many years, and I just got completely mesmerized. I started binging all of her videos and just going down this whole rabbit hole of ceramics. I started watching pottery videos, and I was, like, hooked, you know? It was, like, the first thing that really grabbed my attention, and I was like, "I have to get back into it, like, I miss it so much." And I started looking at all the equipment. It was very, very expensive, and I was like, "Oh gosh," like, oh. And so I just ordered this super cheap wheel off of Amazon, like a baby little dinky thing, and some clay, and I started throwing again, and it was like that spark came back, and I was like, "Wow, I have something that's just mine," you know, that I have an outlet to be creative again that is outside of being a mom, being a wife, and, I got so obsessed with it, and I would put my son in a high chair next to my wheel, and he would just watch me throw, and I would do it, like, any little slice of free time that I had because I it just brought me so much joy, it was so meditative, and, yeah, it all kind of started from there, and I'm still doing it now, um, and I just fell so in love with the place that I'd go when I would be with the clay. It was like my brain would shut off. I wouldn't have to think about anything that I needed to do. It forced me to slow down. It's like a very sensory medium as well because it's like muddy and wet and you can feel it forming underneath your hands, which I loved. And yeah, from there I guess I started posting my videos on Solstice and it's just kind of snowballed from there.
Mm. Wow, that takes grit and courage and so much confidence in yourself to, when everything in your life is going on and you have these responsibilities to come back and like choose something for yourself. I feel like that's where so many people get stuck. It's like they put so many other things above themselves and like look at you now just because you said yes to yourself, you said yes to something, I imagined you didn't think you were going to have a whole business
No.
around ceramics when you had your little dinky, wheel. So what was that step for you, when I imagine you were practicing and getting better, and when did you decide, like, "I'm gonna make this a business," or was it, or did it happen kind of naturally, like people reaching out to you? What was that step from hobby to business?
This is the point in the podcast where I'm inviting you to be a part of this movement with us. If you're tired of leaving your ceremonies at home, we are making this travelable cacao for you. Plus, $1 from every single purchase goes to support the Baruca tribe in Costa Rica. Pre-order now at nakedearth.art and be a part of real change.
Um, well, I originally started sharing just because I thought it would be fun to document the process and I liked watching the time lapses myself. I was probably the only one that was watching my videos at the time. Um, and the intention gets a little bit muddy because there was a shadowy aspect to when I decided to turn it into a business. It was always rooted in a genuine passion that I had for clay. And subconsciously underneath the surface, my relationship at the time was no bueno. It was not good. It was very unstable. I was fully dependent on him for everything. I did not have anything to myself, not even my own car, a bank account, credit score, nothing. And when I had my son, those issues were amplified, and that's when my mama bear intuition came in, and I got very protective of him, and it gave me this sense of, like, I have to actually stand up for myself now because I'm responsible for this human being who is dependent on my well-being, and so I think subconsciously there was like a motivation to create something for myself so that I felt like I had safety, I had something to fall back on. Because I think somewhere down there, even though I was not ready to admit it to myself, like I knew I was gonna have to get out at some point.
Mhm.
And um it was a very because there was without getting too far into it, it was, you know, it was how I was controlled and kept there was the financial aspect. And so um yeah, I went into it like, I love this. Sure, let me try to sell something just to see how it does. And it was funny, the first collection that I put out, I didn't sell anything except to my dad who bought a couple pieces from me, which bless his heart, I love him so much. Um and then a couple friends and whatnot, and then I think it was, like, my 3rd collection that I put out where it was my first incense burner. It was, like, a snake design that was, like, the first thing that people were like, "Oh my gosh, can I buy one?" And, and then, yeah, I saw that it was working and it felt really fulfilling, so I just kept with it, and, um in that time, I kind of tried to convince myself like, "Oh, it's okay, like, I can make this environment work, like, I don't need to go anywhere," and so I just kinda sat there and I was like, "I'll make it work, it's okay, like, I can repair things," and, built, something for myself that made me feel less trapped and less stuck. Um, and obviously, it didn't end up it didn't end up working out, I had to jump at one point, um yeah, it my motivation to sell it was really just because of a genuine passion, and there was, you know, all of those things going on underneath that nobody really knew about, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I can feel the pain and the fear, and I've been in other situations and I've seen family go through situations, and I feel like when the art saves you, like it becomes more than just an expression of self. It's like a
Mm,
devotion. It's almost like a
mhm,
prayer and like a thank you. Like, for some background, when I was like 15, wood carving, like I had attempted suicide, and I was, going through my phase and like feeling this darkness and this depression, and it was the wood carving that just like kept me going and kept me feeling like life is worth it, and then here I am building a whole brand, it's evolved, but yeah, it's a different kind of devotion. It's almost like this breath to keep you going, at least, for me, and what it sounds like for you as well. What was that shift then when you did finally get out? Did you keep making the art? After you were able to get out of that situation, what did life look like for you then?
There was a tremendous shift because, I resonate a lot with how you articulated that experience of art saving you and being the breath that kinda keeps you going, because when I was still in that environment, that's exactly what it was for me. Like, I would just lock myself in my little studio for hours, and I would pour myself into it. It was, like, the only thing that kept me going. It was my place to alchemize all of the stuff that I was dealing with at the time, and, um, when I left, my relationship with my business changed because it went from being something that I did just for fun, there was no pressure on it to make money, to, "Oh my god, like, I have all of these bills now, I am fully responsible for myself for the first time in my life," and, um, I remember the first collection that I put out when I moved into this new space, it didn't really work, and I was so confused. I was like, "Okay, I really need it to work now, and for some reason it's not working." And that moment was very pivotal because I switched out of what is alive in me right now? What wants to be sung through me? What's inspiring me in my life? Like, what can I translate um to this is a business. It needs to work. I'm going to go back to old stuff that has sold before. I need to create safety and security. And that just started. Oh no.
This is new. Environment change. It's consistent with the story.
Yes.
And now we have a brand new scene.
It's fresh. um and yeah, that started me down this whole new season of my business where I wasn't creating what was alive in my heart and my soul. I was creating what I needed to create in order to pay my bills. And I did this for probably 1 to 2 years. And to no surprise, the burnout started to just creep up on me because I was not making the things that I really wanted to be making. I don't love to go back and make old stuff because it's just not alive anymore, you know? And interestingly enough, even though I wasn't sharing about any of this happening in my life online, I felt like maybe the energy that I was bringing to my art, which is like, I'm creating this because I have to, I'm creating this to sell it. It wasn't as successful. Like, it wasn't moving. People weren't buying it. They weren't as interested in it.
Yeah,
And
1000%.
I was so at a loss. I was like, I felt all of these things like I have failed. I'm just a big fluke. I'm just a big joke. Like, he had something to do with my success. And now that I'm not in that environment anymore, I've just lost it. Like, this is who I really am. Like, I went to a very, very dark place. And I ended up actually quitting and stepping away from Solstice for an entire year because I was so burnt out. I did not want to be creating. Ideas were not flowing to me, and it wasn't really working anyways, which was really hard. I actually did not come in this room for many months because it just devastated me. I felt like such a failure because I was once so creative and had infinite ideas to create, and I was so passionate. And it was like a 180 flip where I was a completely different person. And in that time away, you know, I did what needed to be done. At one point, I literally drove Uber because I needed to pay my bills. And, you know, that messed with me because I was like, how did I build this whole thing only for it to not work and me not want to do it anymore? And in that time, I did a lot of soul searching. I had another heartbreak, more character development, and all kinds of things that happened. And eventually, I ended up reaching this point where a vision came to me. It was one of my fairies. It was a little fairy with like a mushroom cap head. And I was so excited about it because it was the first time that I had a vision for anything in over a year. And so I came back into my studio and I sat down and I made it. And then it was like something just kind of sparked again. And I came back to my old Instagram that I had abandoned for like 8 months, hadn't logged into that account forever. And I was like, okay, it's probably dead. Like, there's no way that uh, anything will be here for me anymore. And Instagram has changed. Every artist has noticed. It's shifted a bit. What used to work in 2020 to 2023, 2024 is not the same anymore. And so I noticed that and I was like, oh, this is because I spent a lot of time away. So while I came back so excited and alive, I was like, oof, I'm gonna have to like learn how to show up here again because it's not the same. And what I realized is because I tried putting out new work and it wasn't working, but when I showed my face and I showed my genuine excitement for what I was doing, I was making those little mushroom guys and I was so excited about them. I was showing them on my story. I was like, "Look at how cute they are. I've never made these before." And it was like I wasn't doing anything incredible, but like me just showing up and having a genuine excitement in my eyes and aliveness for what I was doing again, like people felt that. And suddenly it was like everything was working again. It was like a switch flipped back on, and the external was reflecting what was going on internally. And I was like, what? Like, I could have just, all I needed was to be excited and in love with what I'm doing. Like, it's that simple, really? Okay. And in that whole experience, I ended up getting a passion for wanting to connect with other artists because I now had that understanding of what it's like to struggle, to be burnt out, to not be getting sales, to be struggling in the algorithm and being seen online, and um seeing like the things that helped me get out of that. I was like, I want everybody to know about these things because like there's so many amazing and talented people out there who are not sharing their gifts with the world because of these things that I have experienced. And now that I am, on the other side of it, I'm like, oh my God, we need everybody who is creative and has these beautiful gifts. We need everybody to be showing up and sharing them because the world needs it. Like art has been around as long as we have. It will always be around as long as we are. And I have such a soft spot now for artists because we are a very special kind of human and we have a very special sacred kind of work, and I just want everybody to thrive and feel the joy of expressing yourself and being seen and connecting and having an impact with the things that you create that only you can create. um and that's where we are now.
Full circle moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. The things that really stood out for me when you were sharing was the main one was like art doesn't sell if you aren't excited about it. Like
Mhm.
if you're just making it to make it, like you said, like you just needed to pay your bills, you needed to be responsible, you needed to do these things. Art was your career, art was what you were working on. And I had the same exact thing happen to me with my flute collections. Like I would make a collection and I'd be like, I need to pay my bills this month. And I'm like forcing it. And even though the end product was beautiful, it was like missing this soul.
Mhm.
It was almost like flat. Like it was just a thing.
Mhm.
Beautiful, but it was still just a thing. And then when I made collections because I had like the visions of it, and I'm like, no, this needs to be in the world because this is what I'm channeling from spirit out of my hands, they,
Mhm.
like, sold immediately. And so that's
Isn't that
really
wild?
cool. It's so wild, like, to hear you've had the same exact
Mhm.
experience, and, like, it's almost ironic, like, being an artist I heard you on one of your videos, you said yeah, I think it was video, pretty sure. But you said something along the lines of, like, business tactics or, like, ideas or methodologies that apply to normal businesses, like, do not apply to artists.
Mhm.
Can you
Mhm.
talk to me a little bit more about that? And in context, this is a bit of, what you're going through with your program called Feast, um, which we can get into that too, and I'd like to hear more. But yeah, tell me more about why you think that normal business practices don't actually help artists.
Most normal business practices are coming from marketers, not makers. Like they're not like they're creative in their own way, but it's like the very logical engineer methodology that works for systemizing like completely different businesses. Artists, our work is energetic. Like, we are not running factories, we are not running complicated oil rigs and things like that. Like, we are transmuting energy. So, like, the bulk of what we do is energetic. So, our strategy needs to be conscious of energy. And that's something that I noticed was missing in a lot of the advice that I was getting. This is actually a kind of embarrassing, funny story, but I spent a lot of money to join a program that was geared towards how to build a successful business on social media, and it was focused on content. And I was like, okay, this is great. Like I could know how to make better content. These are the trends. This is what's currently going on Instagram. It would be helpful to know this. And what they taught was this is a system that you can use to post every day and bulk batch your content so that you can post consistently. And 10 days into this program, I got so burnt out. I have never experienced worse burnout in my life. And I was so embarrassed because I had just gotten my passion back. Like, I was like, I just came from a year-long burnout. I got so lit up. I joined this program, 10 days. It's like just water on the fire. And I was like, there was a lot of value in there, of course, but the most valuable thing that I got out of it was realizing that, like, we need our own way. You know, like we cannot apply these systems that other people are using to build these businesses that are completely different than what we're doing. And I hear it all the time. I've talked to so many different artists that when we try to apply and fit ourselves into these systems of showing up, doing the same thing every day, repetition, like just don't stop, go, 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 we get burnt out, you
Yeah.
know, because we're not moving in a way that complements the way that we like to flow. You know, our energy is not linear, it doesn't move in straight lines. We are like, we spiral and we wave, like it's not consistent. And so we need to build our own strategy and system that actually can hold that. And, you know, in my area, um, of work, most of my following are women, and so we are typically running on, like, that feminine cycle, that feminine energy where
Yeah, I was gonna say this sounds like cyclical living almost,
Yes,
but like applying
yes.
cyclical living and like the 4 phases of the cycle to
Mhm,
business and to your yeah, totally.
mhm.
I'm right there with you.
Yeah, because you know, every week I'm in a completely different energy. I can't show up and build this system that I repeat every single day, like, that's a very masculine sun cycle way of doing things, and it works for a lot of people, but I also know so many artists and creators, especially, um, those with the female hormone cycle, and it does not work, and so I'm like, we need a different way where we can be relaxed, we can move slow, we don't need to rush, we don't need to export the same amount of work every single week. You know, we have something that can hold us. And
And it's
yeah,
predictable. It's predictable
yeah.
because if you do predict and, like, do your business and lifestyle with the 4, cyclical phases, like, I live this way. I live in a cyclical way, a
Mhm.
28-day cycle, and so it's like when I'm in follicular and ovulatory, I'm like, "Hell yeah, let's get some shit done."
Yeah.
Like, "Alright, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do all this," and I know it, and even when I don't feel like I do it anyway in those phases because I know in 2 weeks it's gonna be, like, internal time, it's gonna be more reflections. So, like, for me, that looks
Mhm.
like writing newsletters or
Mm.
editing content or, like, doing things that don't require as much effort, and then in follicular and ovulatory, you know, it's yeah, more of those, like, having podcasts and,
Yeah.
like, you know, doing those things, and it's like because I feel like the misconception, even thinking, like, for maybe, like, cisgender men who are listening to this or people who do follow the sun cycle, and they're like, "Well, you're just if you go with the flow all the time, you're not gonna get anything done, or you're not going
Mm.
to, you know, you're gonna lose motivation because you're just in the flow all the time," you know, because I see people who do that as well, but when you understand what the flow is, and it does have structure, it's not all over the place, it's just different.
Mhm.
I think you can actually get a lot more done because it leaves room for the
Mhm.
variety of our experience, especially as an artist.
Mhm. And it's so important to create a flow that actually supports that because again, we are energetic. So if in my experience when I've tried to just push 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 no matter what phase I'm in, I end up burning out and then I have to take time off to try to get the creativity and flow back. Whereas if I actually just slow down and build something where it's like everything that I'm doing in each phase is complementary to the energy that I'm working with, then I can keep going. You know, I can stay consistent because it honors it. But you just push and you crash, and then you take time where you're just not doing anything because you're dead. So like you have
Yeah,
to
that crash time is gonna come regardless. You can
yeah,
either like
yeah.
plan for it or surrender to the burnout.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm curious, is that kind of some of the vibe of what you're doing in your feast workshop?
Yeah, so the feast is going to be a 4-week experience where we are coming together in community with live gatherings. And I'm basically we're just gonna have all of these conversations that we've been having in the privacy of our DMs that we've been scared to talk about, but are very real, relatable struggles and experiences within the art community. And, you know, in my experience of all the ups and downs of being in a flow state that's very magnetic, where it's just like sales flow, money flows, creativity flows, to forcing and doing a system and trying to adopt like these very like rigid, you know, things and that not working and the burnout and coming back. It's like, okay, I think I've finally figured out all of the ingredients to keep passion flowing, to keep burnout away, and to stay happy with what I'm doing. And the biggest component to that is following where the energy is alive, like following where the passion is, even if it doesn't make any sense. In fact, that's actually a litmus test that I use. It's like, is this throwing my logical brain off? Like, am I spiraling a little bit? Like that doesn't make sense. You shouldn't do that. That's not safe. I'm like, actually, that's my ticket that I should go after it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I wanna share that experience and open us up to be able to talk about these things and discover this new way where we can thrive, we can be supported in our work, because I know that so many artists really want to do this, but we just haven't had a good example of how to do it, and that's why we've, you know, been burnt out and where like, "Don't turn your art into a business, you'll end up hating it." And it's like, I know that experience for sure, but I also have figured out how to bring it back in a way where it actually is fun. And I just yeah, I want everybody to know about it so we can all thrive and be in our full expressions and be living a life where we're not stressed and living in scarcity. So,
I love this. Sounds like you're following your dharma. You're finding your
yes.
ikigai. I think that's really special and important. There's a part of me that really would love to teach people too. You know, like I think it's really awesome that you're doing it, and I really sounds like you've lived the experience. So lived experience. It sounds like you've learned from many different sources of how to get to where you've gotten, and you have the passion and the drive and the desire to help other people and other artists thrive. It's
Mhm,
possible. I really feel the same way. Like it's totally possible for artists to make it for themselves. But I think the biggest thing is like you have to really want it. You
mhm,
know, it's like to because at the end of the day, whether you're doing it in the sun cycle way or the moon cycle way, like it still requires this discipline and drive that is unlike anything else to be an entrepreneur and to sell your art and to sell a product, sell an art, sell
mhm.
anything and running your own business and having to create your own audience and all the things that come with being able to support yourself. Um, yeah. I love it. I'm super stoked. There's like so many other thoughts going in my mind that I love to talk to you about. Um, outside. But, um, yeah, tell me where can people find you and how can they support you?
I am mostly on Instagram. That is my home. I lost my TikTok, so you can't really find me on there anymore. I did make a new account, but nobody really knows about it yet. But yeah, my Instagram handle is Ken's Solstice, and that's where I'm always sharing inconsistent. And then yeah, if you tune into my email love letters, you can get extra things that won't get skipped in the algorithm because we know how weird it is. If you follow me, you won't necessarily hear from me, but that's just how it is.
Get on Kenzie's email list. I'll drop it in the bio down below. Follow her on Instagram and TikTok. Get that TikTok popping again.
Yes.
And I end every podcast with this question. So I invite you to close your eyes and take a deep breath. Exhale, let it all out. Maybe a little shake. Take a deep inhale. And imagine your heart and your life is one drop of water into a pond. And you see these ripples extending out of your life, going to the 7 generations after you. If one message of your life could be carried to the 7 generations after you, what would it be?
You can have it all.
Shazam! You can have it all. Absolutely. It 1000% agree. And I feel like you are a living embodiment. So thank you for
Thank you.
following your passions. Thank you for never giving up. Thank you for doing whatever it takes to come back to what's important to you, no matter the struggles, no matter the obstacles, and so you can be in a place and help others do the same.
Thank you so much for holding this beautiful space and sharing your stories with me. I loved it.
Pleasure. All right, go follow Kenzie, and we out.